All right, welcome back. So we're moving on to part 3 of how to succeed in the flipped classroom. Today we're going to talk in more detail about the outline, specifically looking at learning activities, talk a little bit about time management, as that seems to be a big factor in success, and then also talk about how to ask questions in this class because questions do come up. So the first thing that we're going to discuss are the different types of learning activities that you're going to see. So as you can see, we've got lots of different activities listed, and you've also got some choices at times with the or there. And so besides taking notes using the Cornell style, working on book problems, doing labs, and at times worksheets, the other two main activities that you might see are Pogos and PhETs. And so let's look at a Pogo first. There it is. Okay, so Pogo stands for Process-Oriented Guided Inquiry Learning. So what this means is that we would like you to work in at least a group of 2 when you're working through these, because working with someone else is always a benefit. Basically, the way that these activities are structured is they give you a why, or your motivation for learning the material, some very basic questions based on a model. So when you look at the model, it's really important to read everything in the model. Sometimes you've got a lot of information. The questions initially will be very basic, just referring to the model, and then as you go through the activity, you're trying to draw your own conclusions about what you've learned in the model. So these activities are really helpful in solidifying concepts. They can be a little bit challenging, but don't shy away from them. Make sure that you work with somebody else, work through the content. Keys are posted for almost all learning activities, and so again, when you use a key, make sure that you're using it to check your answers, not just copy answers. If you check a key and the answer doesn't make sense to you, then you need to go through the process for asking questions, which we'll get to in a second. So again, for any learning activity, there is a key. Make sure that you're using it the correct way. If you're just copying, we're going to know that that's happening when you take the assessment. And then you're just going to have to start over again. So it's actually more work for you in the end. The other type of activity besides worksheets, book problems, Pogos, are PhETs. So to get to the PhET simulation, you can just type PhET into Google, or this is the overall website. In the search bar, you would type the name of the activity, and that will be given for you, and then you would click this green Run Now button. It comes up with this simulation. If you've ever used a simulation before, you can manipulate a lot of the things on the screen. This one is specifically for building molecules, but we have lots of PhETs for lots of different types of content. And so when you're choosing these different activities from the outline, think about, what type of learner are you? Would you rather do a worksheet? Would you rather do some book problems? Would you rather do a simulation? What's going to help you learn the material? Don't just take what you would consider to be the easiest route. Because all these activities focus on content and they all help you learn the material just in different ways.
Okay, guys, mine are pretty similar when I use these, except my choices are a little different. Quite often you'll see that there'll be both a required and advanced activity, and that's because of the way I grade. I use standards-based grading. An 8 is sufficient in passing. Anything that's a 5 or below you need to redo. When you have these choices, one is required, and the other is advanced activities. And advanced activities, what that is it shows that you've processed and learned it to a deeper level. Not more, not doing more work, but to a deeper level. And you want to prove that you understand it in a deeper level. So you have that choice as well. And you can see you can get a 9 or a 10 in that. A lot of people don't think that's fair, but I do. I think it's fair because you're doing the extra learning, you're doing the extra work, and you've proven that you understand the extra work. So you do that way. So if you're looking for an A in my class, that's how you go down that route. Okay, so some of the other things I want to talk about here is I want to talk about the dates. You'll see that we put the dates in and we give you a guideline. We talked about this briefly, but this is kind of like a handrail on steps to give you a guideline on how you go. If you look at Ms. Wachowski's, she's very detailed on what you should be doing at school and what you should be doing at home. I just tell you what to do at home. If you stay on the ladder and you keep that track right on there with you, you usually are able to move along and stay right on pace. Now, the downside to this is if you have a game out of town or you know you're going to be gone for playoffs for several days or fairs coming up, whatever the case is, you know you need to work ahead. That means, okay, I'm going to say a dirty word now. Homework, okay?
No.
So you have to do homework to stay ahead in this class. I know that the policy in the district is 2 days per lesson. That's not the case. You have the unit. That's the class. That's the lesson. There's no extra time for that. You need to work ahead. You know what's coming. You see what's in our class. Freshmen, it's a little different. Freshmen, I'll give you your due dates as they come, and if you don't complete it, you'll have the ZAP program to deal with, and that's a freshman thing, so you freshmen will understand what that is.
The only other thing to add on here, we understand that things do come up and you may get behind. We set up an extra week after the final deadline to complete any activities, well, without penalty, I guess.
Without penalty.
But the problem there is that you're going to be having to work on that stuff at home because we're moving on with the next unit. And so while it can be done and we want to accommodate for any things that come up, it's creating extra work because now you're trying to work on 2 chapters at the same time, and usually content intermingles. So it's really just to your benefit to stay on time or even ahead. And so since, like Mr. Damon said, you have the entire schedule, that shouldn't be a problem. The last thing we're going to talk about is how to ask questions, because we know that questions come up. And because there's only one of us and there are about 25 of you, we cannot go around to each of you individually and answer all your questions, even though we would love to be able to do that. So you need to have a procedure for how to get your questions answered. First thing that you should do if you're not understanding how to do a learning activity or some homework is to look over your notes. You take notes in the Cornell fashion for a specific reason. It's to help you organize your thoughts. So a lot of times your answer can be found directly in those notes. We do a lot of practice problems in our videos, and which are very similar to the homework. If that hasn't helped you, the second thing that you could do is rewatch the video, which, yes, will take time, but learning takes time, and it's not about getting it done quickly, it's about learning the material. And sometimes that takes a little bit more time, and that's okay. The important thing is that you learn it. So you could go back and rewatch the video or find a different resource if our video didn't work for you. You've got a plethora of resources at your fingertips. And then the third thing before you ask us is to ask a friend. Find somebody else in the class or even outside of class who's maybe taken the class before who knows the content or is working on the same thing that you are, and see if you guys can work together to help each other out. Now, if you're the person being asked, this doesn't mean that you just give the answer, because that's not helping anybody. So it's also important for you to know how to help somebody else and try to lead them through the problem. Maybe explain your thought process. Don't just give an answer. After you've exhausted all of these resources, if you're still not sure, then please ask. Okay, it's not that we don't want to help you, but we want you to be successful even when we're not here, and these skills are going to be really important for you.
Okay, guys, and think about that. With the way we go through asking questions, what other class can you go back and get the lecture again? This is the only class that allows you to do that, to see the lecture multiple times. Maybe that's appealing to you, maybe it isn't, but you get that opportunity. And please, please keep in mind, copying is not helping from the friend. Okay, you're not doing that. We will find that out when you take the test that you haven't learned it. You may fool us once, but you probably won't fool us twice.
And really, it's not hurting us, it's hurting you. Same thing with copying from the key or any other resource. So really, just take the time to learn the material.
Okay, let's do some checks for understanding real quick. For this one, what we want you to do is we want you to ask a question about this video using the procedure that we outlined. Go through that. Ask a question. Remember, your Cornell Notes even has a column for you to ask questions about this video. Perhaps that's what you should be doing. I don't know.
And if you feel like you understand everything from this section, just think of something that might come up later that you could use to ask for a question.
Absolutely. All right, and then remember the checks for understanding from the last video. You're going to compare your notes to what you took in this one, which were Cornell notes, and you're going to compare them to what you were doing in the past. Okay? If you need to recheck how that is, go back to the other video. Look how that question is actually worded for you.
All right, have a good day.